Bowers?
Here.
Commissioner Thaden?
Here.
Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner Coleman, audio? The Collaboration Center does not have audio for Commissioner Coleman. I'm going to continue the roll. Commissioner Campbell? Commissioner Batts?
Here.
Commissioner Ansari? Commissioner Ansari, audio?
Here.
And Commissioner Coleman is here.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. 6 in attendance. I did not hear a response for Commissioner Campbell.
I'm sure we will check on Commissioner Campbell. And in the meantime, there is a quorum, and we'll call the meeting to order and allow someone is needs to mute.
I believe it's Saul. Saul, can you mute first?
Okay, thank you. Now we have our general counsel with the governor's executive order.
Okay, this meeting is being held pursuant to Executive Order 16 as amended and extended by Executive Orders 34, 51, 60, 65, and 71 in connection with the continuing state of emergency caused by COVID-19. This meeting is being held to conduct essential business of the Board of Commissioners of Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency. The public has been invited to attend, and the meeting is being recorded and made available for public viewing on YouTube through the MDHA websites. Official business may commence upon a motion, second, and roll call vote in favor of said motion to proceed with this meeting electronically.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bowers, second by Commissioner Thaden. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Purcell.
Aye.
Commissioner Bowers.
Aye.
Commissioner Thaden.
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
Commissioner Batts.
Aye.
Commissioner Ansari.
Aye.
6 votes in favor, none against.
We're now ready for agenda item number 3, which is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of December 8th. Is there a motion to approve?
I move the approval.
Motion by Commissioner Coleman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ansari. Any discussion? Are you ready to vote? Call the roll.
Commissioner Purcell.
Aye.
Commissioner Bowers.
Aye.
Commissioner Thaden.
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
Commissioner Batts.
Aye.
Commissioner Ansari.
Aye.
6 votes in favor, no votes in opposition.
And you adopt.
Chair Purcell, I do want to acknowledge your volume is still quite low. If there's any way to turn up your volume, that would be great. And if not, we're just happy we can hear you.
No, I will try. I will try. Let's see. And while I'm trying to do that, I will also move on to agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4, which is the introductions. And there's a slight change to the earlier material that you received on introductions. We have Ms. Lillian Maddox Whitehead, President of Vine Hill Apartments Resident Association, and Ms. Kelly Huff Jones, who is the MDHA East Cluster Senior Property Manager present at the meeting. Ms. Cummings is on leave this week. And with that, I welcome both Ms. Maddox Whitehead and also Ms. Huff Jones, and please begin.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak with you, and Happy New Year to each of you. Despite the pandemic of last year, the MDHA Resident Association had an active year. We were able to partner with the Metro Public Health Department and provide over 10,000 masks to residents across the city. And along with those masks, we were able to distribute information regarding COVID and how it affects those with chronic illnesses and those who use combustible or vaping products. We also were able to provide resources for food boxes and rental assistance because we know so many of our residents did lose their jobs. And we were also able to provide information about upcoming employment job fairs. As we move forward in 2021, we are implementing a program in the Cumberland View homes, and it's called Sisters of Cumberland View. And this program is targeted to young ladies ages 10 to 13 years of age. It is designed to facilitate an educational outlet that will promote self-empowerment, self-esteem, and make healthier decision-making skills. We also look forward to a partnership with the Nashville Public Library, where we will be able to provide telehealth in a box. And telehealth in a box is this innovative way for residents to be able to have those virtual doctor visits with their patients. Included in the box is an iPad, there are instructions, there's also a blood pressure cuff and a thermometer. And they're also provided with a hotspot as well, just in case they don't have Wi-Fi services in their homes. But another way that this can be used is to provide cessation services. With our partnership with the Metro Public Health Department, we have been able to provide free cessation services for residents in MDHA properties. And also with the partnership last year with MDHA, we worked with Mr. Harbison to provide free over-the-counter nicotine replacement therapy for residents who were willing to stop smoking. Lastly, we're looking forward to implementing a youth advisory committee made up of MDHA youth. And the committee can provide meaningful input into the community's needs. And it also gives the youth an opportunity to express their views and have their voices heard on topics or issues that affect them in their community. Thank you all so much. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you.
Well, Ms. Maddox-Whitehead, I appreciate your being here very, very much. You've been a long-time mainstay employee of our Metro Department of Public Health, and your interest in health obviously transcends the workday and into every day and all days. And I, for one, will say I'm especially excited about the youth outreach that you're intending. As someone who started the Mayor's Youth Council,
Yes.
I'm confident that everything that you foresee can come true in terms of youth voice and youth participation. And I'm sure you're thinking about this, but Oasis Center, which manages that program now for the city, would be a great partner if they're not already involved, certainly in terms of lessons learned and perhaps providing some of their own youth to help the new participants in our program. Anyway, congratulations on it all. It's all good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Ms. Maddox-Whitehead, or would you like to move on to Ms. Huff-Jones for a moment?
Ms. Whitehead, you mentioned the Youth Advisory Council, but then also the Sisters Program. And one you said was at Cumberland View. Where's the other?
The other one will be in the Vine Hill homes.
Okay. Okay, great. Wonderful.
And I'd like a little bit more information about the Sisters Program. It sounded very exciting, and I really appreciate and commend you for the creativity and attention to youth.
Thank you.
So could you tell me a little bit more about the Sisters Program?
I apologize. The Sisters Program is an opportunity for young ladies who live in the Cumberland View homes, just like I mentioned, to be able to come together, whether that be virtually or if we start moving back to in-person sessions. And so they will meet on a monthly basis, And so there will be education around, like I mentioned, health decision-making skills to address, those ACEs, those advanced adverse childhood experiences. Also, we really look forward to working with the mothers or the parents of those youth as well, because we find that if you don't include the parent in the conversation, a lot of times your efforts can be sabotaged. So we really want to make sure that we include those parents as well.
Thank
you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
About how many girls do you anticipate participating? I know it's projecting, but given the number that are there and, some percentage usually shows up.
So we're projecting.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. We're projecting about 20 young ladies to participate in the program.
Any other questions at this moment? Let me call on Ms. Kelly Huff-Jones then, who is joining us today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am happy to fill in while the site staff was not available. I have the privilege to announcing that we have a new leasing assistant that has joined the Vine Hill team. Ms. Marika Jordan is her name, and so we are happy to get her up to speed so she will be fully accessible to help all residents. Vine Hill apartments are 98% occupied, and we are continuing the great works of housing.
Well, thank you for the most efficient report of this meeting. I assure you there will not be a more positive or efficient report. No matter how hard anyone tries, you get the award at the top of the meeting. Are there any questions for Ms. Kelly Huff-Jones? I'm very thankful for both of you being here, for your work at Vine Hill, and clearly for your work across not only our whole community, but the city at large as well. So thank you both very, very much. We are ready for item number 5. These are public comments, and we've had a requested public comment from our council member, my council member, Councilmember Brett Withers. We're not hearing you yet. Jamie, do you know?
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can.
You can. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Purcell, and to the commissioners. I wanted to, number one, wish everyone a Happy New Year. But number two, I wanted to circle back with the MDHA commissioners as a body regarding the 5 Points redevelopment district that expired. I appreciate you giving me your time and letting me join you for comments and questions at 2 meetings last year in advance of the final consideration by the Planning Department and the Metro Council as a whole. I'm pleased to report that we were able to pass the rezoning plan both at the Planning Commission and at the Metro Council. It was finalized on December the 15th, so we made it in under the wire. I know that Mayor Purcell in particular was concerned that we might encounter a situation where we would have a delay that would create an exposure, at least for some of the properties, to some development that might not meet the standards. And I'm pleased to report that thanks to a lot of hard work by a lot of folks, that we were able to get that done on time and on schedule. And I'm confident that things will be off to a great start. So just wanted to thank once again the MDHA Board of Commissioners for giving me your consideration and ahead of that final decision. Would also like to thank the MDHA staff who had worked with me and other Metro departments for about a year on that project and researching it, and I think we got to a good place. And finally, since I haven't had an opportunity to do that in person, just want to thank everyone who has served on the 5 Points Redevelopment District Design Review Committee, over the last 20 years or so, and thank them for all of their work. Would just wanted to give that thanks to them in a public setting, and I think that we're in good shape for 5 Points. I also think that the comprehensive look at Woodland Street will put us in a pretty good position when the East Bank redevelopment district comes up for expiration in about 5 years. I think we've got a lot of good work that's already been done there. We could still look at any particular parcels we might need to, but I think that a lot of good groundwork has been laid for that consideration as well. So again, just wanted to give thanks to the commissioners and all of the design review committee members and the staff members who've worked on this project for a couple of decades now, and we can now turn our attention to other matters. So just thank you again.
Well, thank you, Council Member. Are there any questions or comments on the Council Member's presentation?
I would just like to thank the council member for circling back with us and extending your gratitude. We appreciate all that you do as well.
Any other comments? I join Commissioner Thaden, and I think the whole commission in thanking you for the update and for completing the work as you had intended to do in I would say somewhat record time, given the number of moving pieces and parcels involved. I don't think anyone ever questioned the intent of the council member to complete his work, but it would not be the first time that the good and best intentions of any single council member were not able to be fulfilled for reasons beyond or outside of their knowledge or control. And in this case, you got the job done, and in 2020. So thank you for letting us know. Thank you for making that happen. And thank you for being my council member.
All right. Well, thank you. And again, best wishes to all of you and all of us and all of our country for a better 2021. Thank you.
That would be a shared hope and prayer as well. Thank you very, very much. Item number 6, our committee assignments and expectations for the coming year. I have, I think Matt Wiltshire has a slide that he can share. It is it's representative of my appointments for this coming year, 2021. And the good news is that it will look very familiar to you because it is very much like the assignments in 2020. I would recommend that the finance and in fact making the appointments to finance and audit as presently constituted. The Development Committee, I'm pleased to confirm, I think something we've touched on before, that Kay Bowers can return to full participation in the work of MDHA effective March the 1st. This was a period because of potential conflicts of interest with her previous employment, a period of withdrawal, inability to serve in these particular roles. Effective March the 1st, she will be able to serve on the Development Committee, and that appointment will be made at that time. Management Review Committee continues as it is. Housing and Community Services Committee, current committee chair, Chair Thaden, has agreed to serve until March the 1st, and at that time, with Ms. Bowers' return from Housing Siberia, she will be able to not only serve on that committee, but also be the chair of that committee. And I'm pleased to make that announcement now, and I'll make that formal appointment on March the 1st. And the Human Resources Committee, Chair Ansari and the other commissioners continue in that role in 2021. And I will never be able to thank everyone enough, chairs and members, the real laboring oars. And I think increasingly over this last year, the hardest work of MDHA is done in those committees, as it should be. And I think the discussions we've been having, the way in which you've led us to build greater consensus before we get to these board meetings, there will be some who watch us and wonder, particularly these days, how do they get along so well and move so quickly? And the answer is you should watch our committee meetings. No, that's not the answer. The answer is because we work so hard in committee And I think, come into these board meetings, as we should, with a high level of understanding. And I know that Saul and the team will continue that support for us in that work. So I'm very, very, very thankful to each and all of you. In terms of the year ahead, I would also say that I think we've had the opportunity over the last now couple of months, certainly, to focus on this year ahead and the broad outlines of what needs to occur. And first and foremost, I think the precedent that we developed last year of a retreat very much focused on the interests of this board and the informational needs that the board has is critically important. Matt, I think you can remove the committee slide so that I can see more of everyone. Thank you. The retreat, which is coming up, and we're going to touch on it later in the agenda today, I think was critical to our year together last year, and this year is based in large part on both what we did and what we learned last year. I'm going to share, when we get to that agenda item, my suggestions for the way in which it be structured. You'll have a chance to look at that, and then over the next couple of weeks, as you have thoughts about things that should be changed or added to that, feel free to share that with Saul, and we'll do our best to address them formally in the agenda. But as was true last January, really and truly, this is our time and your time. So if there are things that aren't formally on the agenda, or things for whatever reason occur to you during the course of a retreat, the structure, I think, should be flexible and open enough that we can go wherever we are led. We may not be able to stay there forever, but we can go there and we can talk about it and at least begin the process of thinking either for the first time or anew about whatever it is that is on any commissioner's mind. It is that chance that we have to talk with each other in a properly noticed and public way that allows us also to build greater, I think, consensus at the beginning of the year. And then as the year proceeds, we have two critically important events in the life of an agency. One we have been through before, 7 years ago, and one we have never been through before. And the first is a performance audit, which will over the next 6 months, I believe, provide us with the kind of benchmarking, both as to our own performance over time and also as to other agencies, both similarly and differently situated across the country, a set of benchmarks that we have never had before. And it should, in its comprehensiveness, address all of the areas that each of us and all of us have been wondering about, thinking about, talking about, and concerned about over the course of at least our work together this last year. It is a unique tool, a critical set of data, and will inform not only us, but more importantly, or at least as importantly, inform a new executive director who should be arriving at about that same time. And that's, for the long term, the most important thing that we'll do this year, I do believe. And that is find and select the next executive director of this agency. We have obviously not had that many, which is I think a sign of stability that is not necessarily typical at all levels of government at this particular time in our history in America. But we have had that stability, and we would hope to have that same kind of stability going forward. If we do what we are going to start doing, well, we've already started, but we'll continue to do with Dr. Kroom here in another couple of agenda items down as we begin the process of describing, defining, and then ultimately moving into the search for that individual. That is what I see ahead. I begin the year really believing we are both more together and better informed than we have been in my year on the commission, and that's again a reflection of the work commissioners have done, the questions you've asked, the way in which you have both prodded and lifted us, but also to a staff, a broad staff leadership, and right across the agency that has been responsive to questions never asked before. In some cases, questions never discussed in ways they have been before, and in some instances, questions that have never been raised so many times in 1 year. But in any event, you have been there and you've hung in there. And as I look at your faces, you're all sitting upright, and that's a very encouraging thing for commissioners to see. Joe's a little bit tilted forward, but everybody else is looking pretty good. And so I feel good about I feel very good about the start of this year. The way in which we've responded to crises, whether it was a tornado or more recently a bombing, not directly of our property, but with implications for our work. And I think Saul will talk about that. And the way in which we've integrated with the city and the needs of the city over the course of this last year, and especially over recent weeks, frankly, is a great encouragement to me, and I hope and believe will be to the city in the year ahead. So that is my set of expectations for the year ahead, and we'll have lots of time for every member of the commission to share their expectations when we're together in the retreat. And if there are no questions, I worked very hard not to raise any questions, but if there are any questions, I am happy to answer them. And if not, go ahead.
Commissioner Purcell, will
Yes.
the performance audit start soon, within the next 30 to 60 days? And
Yes.
is there an outside entity that will conduct that, or is it going to be done internally?
As I understand it, the RFP has already been issued and is on the street. Then we should have a response back. And my hope and expectation is that in the time period you describe, the selection will be made and the work can begin.
Thank you.
And I really do hope for a summer conclusion. And I don't want to, in the legal business, you try very hard. I don't know if any of you, the rest of you do this, but you do try to lower expectations. But I don't mind saying to you all that I have very high expectations for this process. And if we do it right, and if the team does it right, we should have a set of data that will answer the questions that have been in the front of our minds and the back of our minds about where we are in this world. And that's nothing less than that. I should be delivered through this process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Reports from committees. We have the report of the Development Committee. This last month, the Development Committee met alone. And so we have an opportunity for Chairman Ansari to bring the report of the Development Committee.
Thank you very much. Not only was the Development Committee alone, it was a very succinct agenda, so I will try to be equally succinct in my comments. So the Development Committee convened Thursday, January 7th, to discuss really one agenda item. That was a payment in lieu of tax proposal for a Richland Hills development. The Richland Hills development is a 201 unit rehabilitation opportunity to preserve affordable housing. That redevelopment will be funded through the use of a 4% low-income housing tax credit. What became clear after discussion is that the amount of the pilot has not been determined and concluded between MDHA staff and the developer, so there was no vote. So our expectation is that that negotiation will be concluded between now and February's meeting. We will bring it back to, I believe this time we agreed, to the Development and Finance Committee jointly prior to our next board meeting, and take a vote there, and then push that to the board for our February board meeting. All right, and since there was no vote, there's those are the summary of pilot. There were two other matters that came up in the form of either other business or new business. The first, sometimes early last week, I think it's pretty obvious that a developer, Tony Giarratana, had made a public presentation suggesting that he would develop certain properties on MDHA-owned land in exchange for a park. I think it didn't merit much discussion in the development meeting other than that had occurred. I think it suffices to say that MDHA has not engaged in any direct discussions with the developer with regard to him developing a property on MDHA-owned land in lieu of in exchange for land owned by the Parks Commission. The third item that came up during this meeting was really around Amazon and Amazon's affordable housing initiative. I think in the Tennessee and CNN and a number of news outlets, Amazon has announced that it plans to, in some way, shape, or form, invest $7 billion in both the preservation and the in development of 20,000 affordable housing units and through both Seattle and Washington State, Arlington in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and as well as Nashville. So I think it was just really brought to the attention of the agency that that opportunity was out there. And the response from the staff is that we are working diligently to determine MDHA's approach to engaging Amazon with regard to the resources that could be available for both the preservation and creation of affordable housing. There was nothing concluded other than the fact that the agency made us aware, the board aware, that they understand the opportunity is near and they are working both with city officials and independently as an agency to determine what might be the best approach to capturing some of those resources. And so with that, that is the report from the Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Questions for the chair? It was succinct. It was everything you promised. Thank you. Item number 8 is the report of the Management Review Committee. And this is not formally a report of the committee. This is the committee chair has during the interregnum between meetings and met with and talked with Dr. Cynthia Kroom. And I'm pleased to acknowledge that she has met with and communicated with all of the other commissioners. This was an interest of hers as it was of yours. And I'm very thankful again for the time that each of you has taken to make sure that she has the input and the response and the reactions that she needed. And having said that, I think that I will turn over this portion of the meeting to Dr. Cynthia Kroom with our thanks in advance.
Thank you, Chair Purcell. I hope you all are able to hear me well. What I'd like to do at this time, as the board or commissioners are aware, we are trying to finalize the document for your executive director. You received a comparison document that included the original information that was sent to you, along with 3 other documents that were based on specific recommendations from members of the commission. I'm going to attempt to share my screen so that you can be reminded of what you reviewed. Our hope today is that we will be able to have some, since the word of the day is succinct, our hope today is to have a succinct discussion, but that's entirely up to the commissioners, so that we can finalize this document and the team at MDHA can go ahead and do the RFP for the search committee or the search company for this position. I know this will keep us on track, and so I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Let's see if I can get that up here. Okay, this is actually the document that we will be discussing. If at all possible, I will try and guide us through this process. I have on the screen the various options. There will be 4 options. I'm going to just summarize some of the feedback that you all have already provided to me that I hope will allow us to get to a decision. There are 4 options. Option 1, which is on the screen currently, is the original document with a few changes. And the changes specifically in option 1, in addition to a couple of basic corrections to wording, includes adding, you'll see in red, prioritizing sensitivity to equity, inclusion, diversity, and justice. And you will notice the other change is as a strategic vision, outcomes oriented, and results driven leader. Those are the 2 changes you will see from the original document that was sent to you. So I wanted to make sure that I indicated those 2 changes. There are 4 options as previously stated. option 1, which is currently on the screen, which you all have seen. Option 3, you notice I'm skipping option 2 at this point. And option 4 are essentially the same document with the exception of a few word changes or rewording of very small sections. The document that is the option that is the greatest change from the other 3 is actually option 2. I know that some board members or commissioners have already sent me information about what they feel needs to be included, but this is actually the time where any thoughts that you all have about or preferences for either of these documents or any information that you would like to have added to your preferred document, this is the opportunity for us to discuss at this time. I think the discussion might be easier if the document is not on the screen. So if it's okay, I will stop sharing. If you need me to leave the document up, I will. I know that each of you should have a copy of this. So please let me know your preference in terms of whether it remains on the screen or whether I take it down.
This is the chair. This is Bill Purcell. As much as I don't like the fact that it limits our view of you and each other, if there was some way to make it smaller, I think it's helpful to look at it together. I have a copy of it here in hard copy, but if you would go to option 1.
Okay, this is option 1. This is the original document with a couple of minor changes made to the original document.
Right, but I will say in particular, the second one is a significant and important statement that doesn't appear elsewhere in the document. And it felt important to me. I'm not sure how you would like to proceed, but I will say that these additions to the original document I'm comfortable with, but other commissioners may have a perspective on them. I'm pleased by them, actually.
I have a question. Number 1 is referred to as the original document. And when you say original document, because we got something that was a document that was used 7 years ago. What is this? When we say original, what do we mean here?
I appreciate the request for clarity. Commissioner Coleman, this is the document I sent you all that had been corrected from the original document. So you remember we started with the very first document that was the old document. So we scrapped that all together. So that's
correct.
Here it all. I appreciate your request for clarity. This is the document that we submitted to you all as the revised document that we wanted to serve as the document you would make your decision from. So this is not the old document. Thank you so much for that point.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's totally different in that one. Anyway, never mind. I liked, I guess I'm calling it a preamble, kind of introductory information. I guess it covers about the first couple of pages or a little bit more. I don't know necessarily that it needs to be in the position description. I think it would be useful as an appendix or in a package of information, but I thought that was really important. And all of them have the same 6 or 7 bullet points at the end. My preferred document was number 2.
My preferred document was also number 2.
If I could mention to you in terms of number 2, I think that there's a couple of things that based on what you sent to me that's missing from number 2. And so my question would be, would you want then, if that document ends up being the final document, these additional wordings added around prioritizing sensitivity to equity, inclusion, diversity, and justice, and then the additional statement that you also indicated in your email to me related to strategic, visionary, outcomes-oriented, and results-driven leadership.
Yes, I think you put them there in the red, so I thought they were going to be added. And those are very, very important to me because, and I think I also added something about the expectation of the board, or Board of Commissioners, that the person would have a demonstrated track record and reputation for producing and creating, X number of units. And I think I may have used the number that was in the last study that was done for the city by the Schwartz Group, I believe. So those kinds of things are important for me because I want somebody to come in knowing that we expect the agency will not be able to do all of that, but for the agency to be the catalyst to galvanize the stakeholders in the city to address the problem, if not solve it.
Well, then let us go to document 2. There are at least 3 commissioners that have expressed a preference in that regard. What I agree with what Commissioner Coleman said, which is that the second page of option 2 is in essence the same as the all other documents. And that is to say, if you go to the second page of option 2, that's the executive director's role. And I like the formatting of this, but there are a few words different, but basically it's a reorganization of the second page of 1, 3, and 4, deleting a few words at the start, moving the history to the end. Otherwise, they're all the same. But on page 1, and this is my comment, page 1 is almost entirely about housing. There is virtually no discussion of development, community development. There's a little bit, there are 3 numbers there. And those 3 numbers are not not nearly so broad and inclusive of the larger community as the other 3 documents. The other 3 documents talk about the unique nature of this role of development and community development and redevelopment. These 3 are about simply managing community development programs, conduits of TIF, design review committees. And I will say to you, and this is a recurring theme that will come more as we go into retreat, the other documents have a much broader view of MDHA than this one does in terms of its function. Now, that's not reflected in the job description, but in terms of what we do, that's the case here. The second comment I will share with you is that in this language, it is suggested that we are unique because we are self-funding. And that is true, but I'm not sure that based on the aspirations of this board, as I have come to understand them, and certainly my own hopes over time, that there will be significant other lines and sources and opportunities to fund, to support, to leverage. Now, that's not altogether missing here, but it is a more contained vision of what we do than particularly, as you said, Commissioner Coleman, the introductory paragraph of the other document. So that's my comment, and I'll rest with that for the moment.
If I could just share, Commissioners, one of the reasons behind the introductory comments in the original document was the comments from the commissioners, but it was also some of the feedback that we received from the other stakeholders as well, and the comments of a need or a desire to broaden people's or the understanding for the person coming in the door in terms of their full role when it comes to MDHA. I don't know if that lends anything to your discussion. If it doesn't, just ignore it. But I want to make sure that I mention that the structure was based in large part on overall feedback that we received in terms of the layout.
I do agree with Dr. Crooms that first paragraph of document 1, for me, lays out the broad scope of the work of this agency, and it's I think it's important to start out with something like that in whatever version we end up with.
Is there any agreement about that or support for that notion? I would like that personally.
I was wondering if we could basically just replace the bullets that are in option 2 with the language that we have in option 1. So where that list existed, Commissioner Purcell, where you thought that it was too narrow, if we replaced it just with the first, second, and third in this first paragraph, would that perhaps address the issue?
Can we go down and look at that for a moment? That may be.
And I think I'd also like to ask the commissioners another question related to option 2. As you're looking at that piece, my question is it the content of option 2 or the layout of option 2? So is the appeal the content of option 2 or the layout of option 2? That would help also for us to know.
Yeah, so I think my early feedback when reading is that ultimately I feel like these job descriptions are written for candidates to understand what is the scope of the role that they're coming to, what resources are available to them, and what is this agency or company or foundation is really trying to do. And so when I look at the strengths of option 1, it is very expansive without actually being specific about anything. And so if I read that by itself, I would have no idea unless I went to the website. What is the agency? Like, there's nothing about the agency. It's about what we aspire to do and how we can be really, really great. But it doesn't really say that if I'm unfamiliar with housing, with the housing agency world, it doesn't say a lot about that. And I think what I've heard us say is that we're looking to deal with candidates who both have a traditional real estate background or an agency background. And in a perfect world, it may be someone who is used to running large organizations and who may have backgrounds both across the agency perspective, HUD's perspective, and from a development perspective. And so it just isn't clear what the agency is trying to do. Is what we feel is what we would like to do. It's a lot of words, but I just put myself on from the standpoint is, okay, well, what is the agency? And ultimately, I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to give a situation to a candidate, and we're trying to evaluate candidates through a framework of some sort of, okay, well, what are you trying to solve as an agency? And so I feel like that to really put together, here's what I'm walking into, here's what's happening in the city, and then what is the situational assessment? I feel like that there wasn't enough about what the agency actually is for people to grasp.
I entirely agree with you, Aoli. That was, I think after reading option 2, I thought, okay, if I was looking at this job description, I now know what I'm getting myself into in a way that I just didn't feel with option 1 as much.
Yeah.
The other thing I hope I'm not being repetitive, is I liked in option 1 that kind of aspirational whatever, because I'm looking for someone who's going to say, this is what I can do and this is how I think it should be done. And I know that at some executive levels, there are big packets that are put together that is sent to, I guess, the most preferred or the most desired candidates. And I don't know what the process will be. So I thought that the scope of option 2 was a little bit more, but that first paragraph and those following, I think, are really, really critical for context.
Can I ask this, commissioners, is it possible that then we're looking at this in two different ways. Is it possible that the option one is really sort of the aspirational piece, and that option two represents background and context on the organization itself, and then you have the executive director's specific roles? Is it possible that we're talking about, in terms of what candidates get, that we're talking about a package which could be 2 or 3 pages versus either or? Is that a possibility?
Well, I think that could work, frankly. I think Aoli makes a strong case for keeping these specifics here. And so, frankly, if you could start with the aspiration of 1, which is, we'll look at it again, but also the aspirations of numbers 3 and 4, and then move into this conversation. Maybe you put the history in here too, that paragraph that's moved to the end, I think, on this one, so that you've got history, and that's then, okay, here's where we are now. And then finally, the job description, which I think is common across all 4 versions. I think you have it all. And while efficiency has been the watchword of this meeting, sometimes more is more. And I think maybe as you described it, and as I heard, think about what Aoli said, more here won't hurt at all. And particularly given the size of our hopes and dreams, I will, in that context, I will say I'm not sure that I think the mission statement should be here in the middle. First of all, it's under review. Secondly, it is quite narrow in its scope, and our aspirations exceed that old mission statement. I hope you don't mind my saying it, but I think they do. I think we share a broader aspiration. So if you take out that mission statement and then move into the about the agency after the language we all like in number 1, I think you're pretty much there. I think you're right.
No, I think it's, and I think it really just gets down to is what is the document for? If you were to post option 1 versus option 2 versus option 3 and say, we're going to post this on a job board, right? And someone has to read this and say, well, what is the actual opportunity in front of me? At least that is a perspective on presenting. And I agree with you, Commissioner Purcell, is that mission statement was simply one that says, okay, well, what is the guiding frame of reference for the agency in some way, shape, or form? And so I don't think there's anything magical to it or that's weighed to it or that's set in stone by that. But I do think that I feel like part of what could have been improved, and one is that it doesn't actually say what MDHA is trying to do. Like, that's the part that feels like a very insular document for people who have talked about this for a very long time, not an outward facing component. But I do think that some combination of 1 and 2 with a more direct and concise writing style could be very helpful. It is probably the right answer.
Okay, well, that's good.
Commissioner Purcell, can we just ask Pat, for the purposes of what she has to do on the MDHA side, what would be helpful to her, not with these documents, that's not our question, but in terms of what she has to do with the posting or getting this going out for bid, and the extent of information that she's able to or has to make available to because originally it's to the search team or for the search team. Is it possible to get some feedback from her at this time, or is that premature?
I think we need to circle back and look at options 3 and 4 to touch on that language to see how we feel about that. I think we're close on 1 and 2, but sure, we could talk to Pat now, and that may inform our thinking about the rest.
Thank you, Ms. Prune. To do our RFP, we will need the information is on the last page, the essential job functions of the executive director. That we definitely need to have listed in the when we send to the search firm. We will need to have some history about the agency so they can have an understanding of what we do and and how we need to get done. And I think this encompasses just about everything that we need for the RFP. One point that I don't see listed here that we would need to add to the RFP is exactly what we want the search firm to do for us.
Thank you, Pat.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you, Pat. Thank you very much. So before we respond to that, can we look at option 3 and 4 and the language that has been proposed subsequent to your earlier discussions? It simply inserts the word affordable.
Sorry. So these were my comments, and I actually think that we don't need to address them. Part of my comments were actually trying to move towards option 2, where we were being more specific with calling out TIF or pilot, or making it clear, just fixing some minor corrections. So I think based upon that, we can probably just skip looking at option 3 at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Option 4. Is that contained in either option 1 or 2?
I don't think the specific language that's in that the highlighted section, which is the only section that was the recommended change. Just the section that you see highlighted.
That's right. I think it's what we really haven't reflected in either option 1 or 2 is really around the purpose-built model, purpose-built communities models. Isn't specifically referenced in either one of the first 2 drafts.
Is that language that the commissioners would want included in the final document?
Well, I can certainly say as to the first 2 sentences, I feel that they add value and are strong statements. I think Commissioner Ansari is right. The question is whether you want in the job description an all-in commitment here that we are following the model at this time and for the long term, or not.
I would be potentially comfortable with something like inspired by the purpose-built model, but it actually means something very formal to be chosen as a purpose-built community, and I don't think we can even actually say that because it's trademarked and we are not selected yet.
Yeah, I have a problem if we're going to be including the purpose-built model. I'd like some words that are less specific and less tied to a very, very particular approach, because we haven't adopted it as an agency nor as a board.
I think what I was trying to get to is what activities and initiatives around the way the Envision communities have been promoted or talked about within the community, and the importance of providing pathways out of poverty. And so you don't have to use this exact name, but that's what's been going on in different initiatives with Casey, and then started with Napier Pseudocum
Understood.
community. And so, yes, and a lot of us believe in that, and that those that vision is what's needed to get away from isolated poverty, and you just provide housing and that's it.
Right.
I want to I want the person coming in to understand it's a little different than just developing housing.
Got it.
Exactly. And I think in several of the, I'm not remembering offhand, but in at least 1 or 2 of them, they do talk about concentrating poverty, or, our commitment to deconcentrating and, as you said, putting families and individuals on more prosperous life tracks.
So,
Yeah.
commissioners, if we can figure out then is the correct language to do with having pathways out of poverty, if that's the correct language, then we can insert that, I believe, in probably the beginning paragraph of the area where we added the word concentrating poverty. It's
Yes.
You'll see, notice it says additionally, MDHA is committed to rectifying years of concentrating poverty and has embarked on an envisioning process. Is that where you would want us to put the language about pathways out of poverty? Will that address it?
What I would like to see, the language I would like to see there is whatever the characteristics and attributes of purpose communities or something like that, because pathways out of poverty, I would think needs a little bit more explanation.
I agree. But
I just went to the Purpose-Built Communities website and studied the language, so
okay,
that's where you'll find some.
if I'm hearing everyone correctly, I don't think there's any, if you'll go back to 4 a second, I think there is general agreement by most all the words in yellow, except for introducing it with following the purpose-built communities model. We could tweak that, or we could delete that, because I think Kay is right that converting legacy public housing into mixed income communities and through partnerships ensuring services are in place that help residents achieve their highest potential, I think says what the purpose is. And I think it addresses Commissioner Coleman's issue as well. I think that's clearer than pathways out of poverty and I think, frankly, not everybody thinks of themselves in poverty, but everyone thinks of themselves as needing to be in a better place. So, so if I'm correctly hearing folks, I think we can take most of that language, except that introductory phrase, and meet everyone's needs. It probably goes up there in the aspirational section, as you suggest. And then I think maybe we're almost there. Here's what I was going to suggest if we're almost there. I was going to suggest, and Cynthia, I don't know if this meets your timeline, but I was going to suggest that you go into your rewrite and have it available for the retreat. Does it need to be done before the retreat, or it needs to be done today?
I need to get this out to you today. So if I can get some idea on that, the consensus is we're going to build off of what we've discussed today. And the next piece we need to cover is the education piece, which is at the bottom of this document. And I can get this to the individual commissioners because what's holding us up is Pat's ability to get this RFP out. Or if Pat feels comfortable that we have enough language that we can at least take care of the search committee part of it, because everyone seems to be in agreement on the main portion related to the executive director's role, which is, I think, what option 2 calls it. There didn't seem to be any issues in this section. I feel like I can get you a version of the rewrite back to the board today. And
okay.
We can, I don't know if you have a process to allow us to approve the rewrite, and then that way you all will communicate with me that we're good to move and we'll move it. But I can't
okay.
take any more time from her.
Okay, well then here's a quick question in that regard. This is going out for the selection of the search firm.
That's correct.
This is not being posted to solicit applications at this time.
Pat, that is correct, unless Pat tells me differently.
That is correct.
Okay, so maybe I feel a little bit more play in this system than I knew we had. The answer to your question is there is a way to have everyone formally approve something, but another way, if you were comfortable, is that Dr. Kroom could send us today her revisions based upon what she believes she's heard from us. If you are comfortable, then she would have an understanding at the end of the day that there is a comfort level across the board without voting. If you're uncomfortable, you have a nuclear alert in it or major discomfort, then you should say so. But if there is no, if there's a general sense of comfort, then it could move to the search process. But here's the good news about comfort, because I've just gotten a lot more comfort. This is going to recruit the search firm. The search firm can come in and say to us, channeling Aioli, channeling Kay, channeling other things that Paulette has said, could say too much, too little, too hot, too cold, too vanilla, too whatever. I mean, they could say that. And we would have the ability then to respond to that if that's the way they felt before this RFP goes out to the world. But the search firm with this, first of all, the search firm ought to be able to read 3 pages. If they want to come to work for us, they should be able to read through 3 pages. And if it's a little bit if it's not 100% of what they'd want, they should be able to live with that too. It won't be the first time they got a request for a proposal. And their job is to come in and help us get it right, edit it a little more, narrow it a little more, throw some other things in. So I'm not sure that we, anyway, I mentioned that because I think we don't have to be as precise in this round as we may need to be as long as everything's there. If it's too much, so what? As long as everything's there, I think you can get through this, unless Pat or any other commissioner believes that's wrong.
I agree with that. My one question is, has MDHA staff fact-checked option 1 and option 2, just to make sure that our numbers and what we're saying is in fact accurate?
The numbers came from MDHA in option 1. Option 2, I'm not certain. I did think I looked to make sure they were the same, but the numbers were sent to me from MDHA. Once I sent the information, Pat gathered it for us.
That's right. And the information in option 2 came from when Jim's final report before he left the agency. He put a bunch of information around employees and units and what we were doing, et cetera. In his last final report to the board, that's where that information came from. The numbers that were set forth.
Yeah, and I want to make sure. Hello, Saul, saying something?
Just a nit that there's a discrepancy on the redevelopment districts. One place says 10, one says 13. My understanding from Joe is that there are 10 active currently. So let's just get Joe to tell Cynthia what that right number is. And the second thing is the word legacy. I know it's a nip, it just has some negative connotations. I would just remove the word legacy from public housing on that section 4, on the option 4.
Okay, let me make sure I understand what we're doing. I thought we were saying that we liked the beginning aspects of 1. We're going to look at combining 1 and 2, and that highlighted paragraph in 4 with some more general words that were less loaded than purpose-built communities. Is that correct, or am I not understanding?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
And that is mine as well, since I have to go back and work on it.
Okay, thank you. Now, another thing that since this is what we have to send to the search firms, what's the vetting process for the search firms to whom we will be sending this, or is it? Because this looks more at something that would go out to the world, and to me, what goes to the search firms are how we define the realm of potential prospects for the work. It would be a different document. So clarify for me, please.
So I will give my understanding of that, and then Pat or whomever else. What this allows us to do is to draft the language for the search firm. Mm-hmm. So we will draft the language for the search firm based on the information that is here. When we talk about the kind of the firm that we're looking for, we're telling them that we're trying to, based on what we're trying to accomplish, give them some idea of what their charge is going to be. But this language is important in order for us to do that. Pat might want to jump in on that
one. Commissioner Coleman, we have a standard template we use for RFPs. We would take information from that you have provided, we will use this information to construct the RFP to go out to the search firms. So all of this information may or may not be in the document we send out in the RFP. So we will be looking at this to give them enough information to understand what our history is here at MDHA, what the purpose of the agency will be, what the essential function for the job for the person we're looking for, also what we need for them to do for us, for them to give us a bid on the services they will provide to us.
I understand that. My question remains, the people who will be getting this, how will we determine them? Or the organizations that will be getting this, firms?
Well, what we would do is that we will send out the RFP to the public, to all the different companies. They will send back a proposal to us. We will bring the proposal back to the management review committee for their review and to determine which services they want to use.
So is there a predetermined list that the city uses or MDHA uses, or is it the universe?
We actually have a list of the past companies we use for the search companies. We can add to that list. We have a standard list that typically we use for governmental type of positions that we recruit for. We have websites, so it would be a multitude of places where we would send the RFP.
I just want to make sure that wherever that we are, again, being mindful of as broad an array of highly qualified firms as possible that will be representative of our community.
Agreed. I agree.
Thank you.
So, Pat, one more question about the firms we're sending it to. I thought we early on in the process went to a market that we didn't want to kind of recruit through only used our traditional recruiting means for this role. I think we talked about, maybe 2 or 3 nonprofits that were focused in the space is who we used the last time. I thought we as both as a board and MRC said our goal is not to replicate that in its entirety.
Where we send it to, we have not established as of yet. Once we create the RFP, we will. You can review the RFP before we send it out, and we can actually create that list before we send it out, who we want to send it to. But that has not been established just yet. We have a standard list that we've used in the past. We can alter that list and create a new list, whatever we want to do as far as sending an RFP. So
if I can channel the commission and see if I know where we are, I think this is another case of where more is more. And the more in this case is non-traditional, new, perhaps even new entries, ideas from board members, local, national, the planet. I mean, there will be no. We just get one shot to get this right, and it needs to be as broad as we can make it. And the commissioners, if I understand correctly, are not just entitled but encouraged. If they know of a firm in Timbuktu, Zamboanga, North Dakota, wherever it might be, if we know of a firm that should at least be on the list and have it shot to, that's not interfering in the process. That's enhancing the process. We can encourage names to be added, and we don't have to cull anything because it's once we hit the button, it doesn't cost any more to send to more people. So. But I'm trying to read everybody's mind, but I think we're all in the same place. We want the broadest possible opportunities for response to this from the old and the new.
Thank you, Commissioner Purcell. We'll make sure that we take care of that. Let me go to one final thing. Are we okay with where we were on the descriptions, what we're going to add in? We need to move to the education piece. The education piece overall was very similar. I think the biggest difference was that the language, there were 2 things or comments that came back to me regarding the education. And one is that the term that you'll see it largely in large red color is that we use the term is preferred but not a minimum requirement. And then the second thing that was proposed or asked was why were the behavioral sciences, removed from one of the choices. You will know that the behavioral sciences are still listed in option 3. They are removed, I think, from option 2 only. So at this point, that's the final piece we need, is your preference on the education piece.
You're
muted.
Sorry. My preferred option was 2. I was concerned about behavioral sciences being taken out. I was comforted by the fact that we're asking for at least 10 years of progressively more responsible leadership in the field. And I wanted to say something like, again, with the reputation and demonstrated track record of having produced, created affordable housing or developed communities, or some words to that effect, and also to try to capture at least my expectation and desire as a commissioner, and I think it's shared.
So which one did you prefer, Commissioner?
2.
Okay.
Paulette, sorry, I'm confused. But you wanted behavioral sciences in, I thought you said.
Correct. Behavior. I wanted to understand why it was removed, and I wanted to include it. It isn't a deal breaker, and the reason it isn't a deal breaker is because the 10 years of progressively more responsible leadership, executive
In urban and community development. I see.
They're already there. I thought 2 had the broadest range of possibilities, and I know a number of them missed finance, and I think that's really, really important, but 2 included it.
Yeah,
that was my preferred.
Like 2. Yeah.
Well, but it 2 does not say it's not either or, and it's you have to have both. You have to have all, or you don't make it.
Understand that.
And it has to be 10 years. So what if someone had spent a lifetime in banking, but 5 years in housing? Or
so they don't qualify.
A lifetime in accounting, but only 5 years in housing. They're just, I'm just saying there are alternative pathways frequently to success in this world. I kind of liked the language is preferred, but not a minimum requirement. If there's somebody,
yeah.
If I have that in there, I can pretty much live with whatever you want in the first list. Because I
say that again.
I just think it is preferred, but not a minimum requirement. It lets you that unique combination of things. I don't know that you're going to have a Nobel laureate apply or that they know anything about housing. But if somebody who got there a different way without 10 years, I mean, just to put it another way, there might be somebody that's that has less than 10 years in the field that would be able to do this because they had 10 years in ministry or 10 years in the United States Congress or 10 years. Maybe that's not a recommendation, but you know what I mean. 10 years in something else. I know preferred but not a minimum gives you the widest ability to have alternative candidates apply, and most of those would be sorted out by the search firm probably. You might find yourself with a unique person that doesn't, and you might want to be able to consider them. And this group here is going to be pretty narrow if you don't put preferred, not a minimum. You're excluding people.
I entirely agree with that, and I want that to be both related to the master's and to the years of experience. For me, this is a diversity, equity, and inclusion issue. We see all the time at my organization phenomenal candidates that if we made these requirements, they wouldn't apply. And they are fully qualified. They have so much experience. And frankly, having a master's degree isn't necessarily the thing.
No, not anymore.
Right. Or having, 10 years specifically, as our chair is mentioning, it might not be in this exact bucket, but it's something related to it. So my preference is that for both, we make it a preference, but not a minimum requirement. And we allow our search firm to help us with going through the applicant pool.
I'm on board with that.
Paulette?
I'm always committed to inclusion, but yeah, I can live with it.
Paoli?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is to give ourselves the broadest field to find the candidate. And I think by not being too prescriptive here, I think the more prescriptive we are here, the less we give credit for the talent that's already on the staff. So you don't need to have all of these things to be considered a candidate, because we have people who are actually doing a lot of this stuff who are already within our organization.
Okay. And I'm not suggesting that you put lawyer or JD in here, but I will say that in the history of the agency, it did happen for a little while. We actually had a lawyer in charge. I don't know, just saying. Okay, we're in agreement, Cynthia. Saul, I just wanted to give you a little lift. I didn't want you to feel too bad.
Rough times.
Just to make sure I'm clear, are we going with option 2 with the term is preferred but not a minimum requirement, really at the end of the sentence versus in where it's located in option 3?
That'll work.
Okay. I think we already responded to the questions about sensitivity to equity and the strategic visionary piece. So that concludes my report. I thank you all very much.
You did a lot of work. Thanks. Appreciate it.
So
Thank you, Dr. Crims, for all your work.
I can't thank you enough.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. And we're all together and we're still talking to each other. It's an incredible accomplishment. Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. We've had the update on the search process, I think. And if we're all right with moving on to item number 9.
Question.
Please.
We will be getting a copy of the revised position description, and we're supposed to turn that around really quickly and get our either a vote or a comment to you. And just indicate the time frame, please, when you send it, or even now.
I will indicate it. I'm going to actually sign off and try and get this done quickly while it's in my head.
Okay.
So that I can get this. If I don't get it to you this afternoon, it will be tomorrow.
Okay.
I will.
Thank you.
Very, very quick turnaround.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll put that in the email. I'm going to sign off. Thank you all so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I had one additional question, which was related to, this is great. I think we're ready to move with the search firm. But before we get to a final job description, I wanted to ensure that senior leadership at the organization was also able to give some feedback to either the search firm or to us. Can we incorporate that into the process in some way, or has that already been done?
Cynthia?
So what's reflected in the job description is all of the feedback. It wasn't just the piece that you all provided. So including what we got from the resident association, what we got from the team. We did send the document to Saul just for some making sure we had gotten some things correct. So we didn't just take the information that the commissioners provided to build the job descriptions. Specifically, when you look at the role of the executive director, that was based on all of the comments that we got from all of the stakeholders, including the team. If you want the job description to go back out, that's certainly the commissioners' prerogative, but we attempted to make sure we were inclusive of all of the feedback we got, particularly in the section that was titled Director's Role.
Oh, I have another.
Before, can I quickly just respond to that as well? I hear you. It was shared, I know, most recently with Saul, our executive director. And what I would like to suggest is that he will have an opportunity after this document moves from this day out to the search firm to double back around and that there'll be an opportunity, as you implied, at the time of the search firm's selection and final discussion, to make sure that there's not something missing there. And that takes the pressure off of the staff. If the staff has looked at this and someone feels like there's a gaping hole, something missing, something that precludes them or excludes someone better somewhere else or here, then we'll have that feedback. And it can come in through Saul, it can come into Cynthia. Those within the sound of my voice will hear this and know that there are different ways to impact it, but it should not leave to the world without one last round of input from anyone interested. So I'm sorry, Commissioner Coleman.
Yes. I just don't remember. Was there any, I remember I wrote in one of the comments about the need for something around experience with labor unions and our collective bargaining, though that's not necessary. So did we include that? And I'm sorry, I just don't remember.
That information was not in the options that we submitted, but if it's something you want included, we can certainly add it in the director role section.
I think it's important experience with labor unions. I don't know how anybody else feels.
It depends where it goes.
Suggesting that as a minimum requirement, or are you saying that someone should have experience, that we would like someone with experience?
Yeah, not a minimum requirement, but someone with that kind of experience. There's some categories in the position description where they just talk about general experiences and general experiences. The silence is deafening.
Well, I'm looking at the bullet points in the job description. Yeah. I mean, it could be working in close relationship with Metro Nashville government, its local officials, as well as with the nonprofit development and for-profit community, as well as representatives of organized labor.
Yeah, that'll do it. Just so long as it's there somewhere.
Would that be? Would anybody have an opposition to that or concern about that? That's in the bullet.
No.
Okay.
Fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all. And don't remember, we're in a good place. This is your chair speaking. You're in a good place. Don't overthink it. It's possible you wake up in the middle of the night and say, "What about the United Nations?" And this happens to me, and you just have to say, maybe not the United Nations right now. Maybe we'll come back to it later. Okay, just say it. Just say it. Okay, I'm not against the United Nations. I'm just saying there's another place that we can get the United Nations in here if we need to. Okay, all right. Executive Saul, where is Saul?
Am I here?
This is, for so many of us, this is the real denouement of these meetings. This is that point where it all comes together, and a lot of people you can see, particularly on the staff, just on the edge of their chairs. I'm thinking of Will Biggs. It's because I'm looking at him, waiting to hear what Saul has to say. So go ahead.
All right, thank you. Matt's going to share his screen briefly in a moment. Okay, so this should not take too long, but I thought I would just put a list together so everybody can be focused a little bit. So go to the next slide, please. This is it. Okay, so here are the major items that I've been working on and are planning for. First, I think I mentioned to you that I was going to visit all the sites. I've been to 9 so far, visiting about 3 a week, hosted by Will Biggs. A little commercial there. Will knows his staff very well. They know him. It was great to get out there and see exactly how well we're positioned, how hard people are working, how much they care. So it gives me a lot of energy. I think hopefully gives the team energy as well. So we will hopefully get through all of them sometime in February, but that's 9 so far. In terms of financials, I've talked to Melinda, I've talked to Jim Filgen. We're working on a set of simplified financials that are not necessarily based on the kind of the HUD accounting model. First quarter is now over, and we will have a variance analysis, budget versus actual. We discussed my understanding is that Melinda and Emily have discussed this at the March committee meeting. We're going to take that up. So looks like we're in good shape there as well. In terms of Second Avenue, MDHA has been asked to participate in the initial discussions concerning the rebuild of areas affected by bombing. I think that's really good news. I think a lot of that is credit to the chair who has paved the way for us to become more integrated with the city. And obviously, we have a lot of experience. We talked at the committee meeting how the areas that were most affected are not in a redevelopment district, but they abut right up against it. And we think we have a lot of tools at our disposal, a lot of experience, and I think we can really help the city through this. Today, the mayor announced the Affordable Housing Task Force. Their initial organization meeting is going to be January 21st. And as many of you already know this, 3 of our commissioners have been selected to sit on that committee, and that's Commissioner Coleman, Commissioner Thaden, and Commissioner Bowers. And Emil Alexander has also been asked from our staff to join that task force. We're going to be very, very well represented. And again, another good indication that not only do we have a lot of experience and expertise in this area, but that the trust between the city and our organization continues to grow and be enhanced. So we'll look forward to what that committee comes up with and what their task is going to be and what their recommendations will be. In terms of the great announcement concerning Amazon, which Aoli's already alluded to, he really said a lot about that. I'm not going to repeat what he said. We have been in conversations with the staff locally. We're hoping to go to the next level in terms of discussions with Amazon. But, we've got projects, we are nimble, and we work well with others. And I think that we are could be a great partner with Amazon and with the city in connection with this opportunity. I thought I'd touch briefly on maintenance. I'm not sure how much we've talked about this in the past, but we have hired a third-party firm known as JLL out of Chicago. Mr. Harbison and Will Biggs and Gus have primarily been the 3 that have worked on this to really help define what the MDHA team of now and the future should look like so it can enhance our overall customer experience, given how we are changing our approach in general. So the initial assessment has been completed. I have not yet seen the report. It's very lengthy, is my understanding, but our next step is to prioritize and operationalize some of the recommendations. And so that's pretty exciting. And we are going to engage the third party firm to do a little bit more work to help us do those things. So that's what's going on that front. We did conduct an employee survey, and the results should be available by the end of this week. And so we will certainly communicate to the board about what the results of those, probably either at a committee or at the board meeting. But we have got some feedback and are eager to share it with you and what our plan will be going forward based on that. So that is my report. The only other thing is I think this is something we might want to take up at the retreat. I have been having one-on-one conversations with the commissioners to find out what they would like to hear about on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. So you might want to get some consensus around that. But those are sort of the highlights. Any questions? Excellent. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to be your interim director and to give my report.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. On the board retreat, I don't plan to take a lot of time on this. You know that we're scheduled from 8:30 till 3 o'clock. This is on the 28th. The logistics are, and Matt Wiltshire gets a lot of credit and others for this, it appears that we will be able to reserve the Music City Center, the entire convention center. Each of us will have our own ballroom, and there'll be an incredible buffet. No, it won't be that way, but there will be. It will be in a large room, which depending on whatever the public health instructions are at that time, will be enough feet apart from each other that no COVID has ever been known to go. That's at least the plan. And we will follow all the requirements of the Public Health Department. Our numbers, we believe, will be 8. We will be 8 in number there in the room, and staff will be available through through technology, and we will hopefully have not just a safe but a successful and personal meeting, which worked, I think, well for us. We would rather be at one of our own facilities, but in this case, Charles Starks and the Music City Center were good to let us use that building, and it turns out that there's a lot of availability there at this time. So we'll be using an important community resource in a way that's valuable to them and to us. There will be free parking. There will be lunch. There will be filtered water. There will be fluids to keep us together. And that's all that I have on the logistics. Matthew, did I miss anything there? The agenda, the draft agenda, we could show it to you on a screen, but I think, frankly, what I would like to do is just send you the draft and let you give feedback to Saul in the same way, if that's okay. It is, in essence, what we did last time, but it is more compact, meaning there are fewer categories, but more space for us to talk. There's focus on the board at the top, then a focus on the agency, which is a place where we should be able to hear the remaining board information requests, some of which are very much, I think, on our minds, and we can fill all that in the agency part. There's enough play in it. If the agency discussion runs long, we have room to adjust for that. We can work through lunch. There will, of course, be some kind of ice-breaking something during lunch, which will be probably involve funny hats and some embarrassing story that you have to tell. But other than that, it'll be a retreat, a very serious, hardworking retreat, and hopefully cover the territory, everything that we wanted to anything you want to talk about now or later. So I'll send a draft agenda just early this afternoon. You can look at it, give feedback to Saul about things that you think are missing or want highlighted, and we'll try to incorporate that as best we can. And then again, know if your language didn't show up on the final agenda, it doesn't mean we can't talk about it. It just means there wasn't enough room on the page to fit those words in. And we'll talk about it. I mean, if you want to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. Okay. Is everybody comfortable on the retreat? Okay. Again, the board information requests, which is item 11 on the agenda, are going to be rolled into the retreat, and they are a summary of existing wait lists. That's that wait list discussion. It's not just a summary. We're going to have a larger discussion about wait lists and how that's handled. Pay grades, pay chart, personnel policies. Again, talking about the agency, we'll get that information. Will come to us at the retreat. The design standards review, a comparison of performance of new mixed income projects versus pro formas. We think that can be included. The land, this was Commissioner Coleman and others, Commissioner Ansari. What do we own? How do we think about it? How do we think about selling it? How do we think about offering it? What do we do with it? It's the start of a land use policy discussion, which has been some months in the making, but it's here in front of us for the retreat. And then the possibility of a rainy day fund, unrestricted, unallocated cash, which is the cash policy that was talked about, say, 90 days ago. And none of these will be in stone when they come to us, as I understand it. Some of them are facts, but a lot of them are works in progress, and we'll have a chance to hear and have input as appropriate in that process. And unless there are questions about that, I can't believe we're on item 12, but I just don't know how we can do justice to the commissioner's dashboard presentation in this meeting. I don't know how we could do it. I feel as though it's been awaited so long that it really might be something for the retreat. Does anybody any concern about that? Maybe pushing it to the retreat where we really have a time to really, in a large space all together, to really dashboard together, and then is there any objection?
No, I prefer that.
Okay. And it'll be a giant screen. The dashboard will never look better than it will at the convention center. The screen is that screen's like a movie theater. I mean, it's unbelievable. It'll just, yeah, best ever.
Now I understand why the job description discussion went so long. You're looking for a way to bump Zach off one more time. Clearly.
All right, next.
Sorry, Zach.
Yeah, we are, Zach. But honest to God, Zach, you will be so ready for this. It will be unbelievable. We need a little better virtual background for it, but that's something you'll work through when we get ready for it. Thank you, Zach. Zach lives in my neighborhood, and he always smiles when he walks by my house. So I think we're still okay with Zach. Thank you, Zach. All right, we're on item number 13.
Beginning.
Is there any? Well, it's up to you. We could consider that, but
yeah, consider it.
But Commissioner Purcell, I mean, this is pretty important, so I didn't want it to end up again at the end of an agenda.
Okay. How about this? I think this may be my best idea today. How about we have the dashboard over lunch at the retreat, where we could eat and Zach could present.
Good idea. I like it.
That's right in the middle. We'll be taking nourishment. We'll be in a good mood. We won't be able to ask questions because we'll have food in our mouths. And Zach, that's good for you. So we okay? Okay. Item 13, old business. Is there any old business? Seeing none. Item number 14, any new business?
Chair Purcell, if I may be recognized.
Well, possibly. Depends on what it's about.
To item number 6, committee assignments.
Yes.
I checked since then. I believe it would be prudent if the board's approval of the committee assignments for 2021 were memorialized via a resolution.
All
So I'd like to recommend to you that you put forth one motion to cover all the committee assignments as presented, and I'm going to share my screen right now so that we have the comments.
Thank you. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coleman. Is there any discussion?
No, it wasn't by Coleman. It was seconded by Coleman.
That's what I mean. The motion was by Kay Bowers.
No, it was by me.
Okay, and
By Emily.
by Chair Thaden. All right. Is there any discussion? Are you ready to vote? Call the roll.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Thaden,
Aye.
Commissioner Bowers,
Aye.
Commissioner Ansari,
Aye.
Commissioner Batts,
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
6 votes in favor, no votes in opposition. Thank you.
And you adopt. Thank you. That's our old business. Is there any new business? Seeing none. Are you ready to adjourn? Is there a motion? Well, I'm not going to make a motion to adjourn because we'll have to take another roll call then. So instead, without objection, does this work, Will?
Yes.
Without objection, we are adjourned with the thanks of a grateful chair.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great week.
You too.
Have a good week. Stay healthy.
Thanks, guys.